Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Vishnu Padmanamhamsa Parikacharya Chosajat Shri Shri Divine Grace to the Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Gaur Premanandi Hare Krishna Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udhirayed Nasta Prayeshta Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Om Jnana Timirandasya Kananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Shijivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Durvishcha Kripasinu Mevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Vidyadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yakripatamaham Vande Shri Gurundina Taranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishvaram. Who's driving? Oh yeah, it's on the screen, but I don't think people can read the, yeah. I mean, I can. Ataya jata yagnesham kratubhir bhuri dakshinahe dravya kriya devatanam karma karma palaparam ataya jata yagnesham kratubhir bhuri dakshinahe dravya kriya devatanam karma karma palapadam atayajata yagnesham kratubhir bhuri dakshanahi dravya kriya devatanam karma karma palapadam. Please chant. Nesham Kratubhir Bhuri Dakshinai Any invisible demigods or anyone else that would like to chant? Mataji. Ata, thereafter, Ayajata, he worshipped. Yagna Isham, master of sacrifices. Kratubihi, by sacrificial ceremonies. Budi, great. Dakshinai, by charities. Dravya Kriya Devatanam, of sacrifices, including various paraphernalia, activities, and demigods. Karma, the objective. Karma pala, the result of activities. Pradam, who awards. Jai Srimati Radharani. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. As long as he remained at home, Dhruva Maharaj performed many great ceremonial sacrifices in order to please the enjoyer of all sacrifices, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prescribed ceremonial sacrifices are especially meant to please Lord Vishnu, who is the objective of all such sacrifices and who awards the resultant benedictions. One second. Sounds kind of loud in the back. I'm just going to turn it down. Yeah, that's better. With repetition. As long as he remained at home, Dhruva Maharaj performed many great ceremonial sacrifices in order to please the enjoyer of all sacrifices, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prescribed ceremonial sacrifices are especially meant to please Lord Vishnu, who is the objective of all such sacrifices and who awards the resultant benedictions. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, verse 9, it said, Yagnartat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha. One should act or work only in order to please the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, one becomes entangled in the resultant reactions. According to the 4 divisions of Varna and Ashrama, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas are especially advised to perform great ceremonial sacrifices and to distribute their accumulated money very liberally. Dhruva Maharaj, as a king and ideal Kshatriya, performed many such sacrifices, giving very liberally in charity. Kshatriyas and Vaishyas are supposed to earn their money and accumulate great riches. Sometimes they do it by acting sinfully. Kshatriyas are meant to rule over a country. Dhruva Maharaj, for example, in the course of ruling, had to fight and kill many yakshas. Such action is necessary for Kshatriyas. A Kshatriya should not be a coward, and he shouldn't be non-violent. To rule over a country, he has to act violently. Kshatriya and Vaishyas are therefore especially advised to give in charity at least 50% of their accumulated wealth. In Bhagavad Gita, it is recommended that even though one enters the renounced order of life, he still cannot give up the performance of yajna, dana, and tapasya. These are never to give them up. Tapasya is meant for the renounced order of life. Those who are retired from worldly activities should perform tapasya, penance, and austerities. Those who are in the material world, the Kshatriya and Vaishya, must give charity. Brahmacharis, in the beginning of their lives, should perform different kinds of yajnas. Dhruva Maharaj, as an ideal king, practically emptied his treasury by giving charity. A king is not meant simply to realize taxes from the citizens and accumulate wealth to spend in sense gratification. World monarchy has failed ever since kings began to satisfy their personal senses with the taxes accumulated from the citizens. Of course, whether the system is monarchy or democracy, the same corruption is still going on. At the present moment, there are different parties in the democratic government, but everyone is busy trying to keep his post or trying to keep his political party in power. The politicians have very little time to think of the welfare of the citizens, whom they oppress with heavy taxes in the form of income tax, sales tax, and many other taxes. People sometimes have 80 to 90% of their income taken away, and these taxes are lavishly spent for high salaries drawn by officers and rulers. Formerly, the taxes accumulated from the citizens were spent for performing great sacrifices as enjoined in Vedic literature. And at the present moment, however, almost all forms of sacrifice are not at all possible. Therefore, it is recommended in the Shastras that people should perform Sankirtan Yajna. Any householder, regardless of his position, can perform this Sankirtan Yajna without expenditure. All the family members can sit down together and simply clap their hands and chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Some, however, everyone can manage to perform such a yajna and distribute prasadam to people in general. That is quite sufficient for this age of Kali. The Krishna consciousness movement is based on this principle. Chant the Hare Krishna every moment, as much as possible, both inside and outside of the temple, and, as far as possible, distribute prasad. This process can be accelerated with the cooperation of state administrators and those who are producing the country's wealth. Simply by liberal distribution of prasad and sankirtan, the whole world can become peaceful and prosperous. Generally, in all the material sacrifices recommended in Vedic literature, they are offerings to demigods. This demigod worship is especially meant for less intelligent men. Actually, the result of such sacrifice goes to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan. Lord Krishna says in 529 of Gita, Boktaram Yagatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam Yakvamam Shantam Richati. He is actually the enjoyer of all sacrifices. His name is therefore Yagya Purush. Although Dhruva Maharaj was a great devotee and had nothing to do with these sacrifices, to set an example to his people, he performed many sacrifices and gave all his wealth in charity. For as long as he lived a householder, he never spent a farthing for his sense gratification. Farthing is a former monetary unit. It was withdrawn in 1961, and it's equal to 25% of a penny. Half a halfpenny. In this verse, the word karma pala pradam is very significant. The Lord awards everyone different kinds of karma as an individual living entity desires. He is the super soul present within the hearts of everyone, and he is so kind and liberal that he gives everyone full facility to perform whatever act one wants. Then the result of action is also enjoyed by the living entity. If anyone wants to enjoy or lord it over material nature, the Lord gives him full facility, but he becomes entangled in the resultant actions. Similarly, if anyone wants to engage himself fully in devotional service, the Lord gives him full facility, and the devotee enjoys the results. The Lord is therefore known as karma pala prada. Ataya jata yagnesham kratu bir buri dakshinai dravya kriya devatanam karma pala pradam. As long as he remained at home, Dhruva Maharaj performed many great ceremonial sacrifices in order to please the enjoyer of all sacrifices, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prescribed ceremonial sacrifices are especially meant to please Lord Vishnu, who is the objective of all such sacrifices and who awards the resultant benedictions. So before I say anything, you all are like senior devotees to me, especially Manju Mataji, and I think Hansrup is probably listening on the phone, and I hope everyone else in the building is listening on the phone. I don't know where everyone is. Who's cooking breakfast? Arjuna Nanda. I hope he's listening downstairs. He's my senior. And thank you for coming and giving me excuse to study. It's Brahmachari's duty to study. And a lot of the time I have one or too many excuses and too much of an uncontrolled mind that I don't study. But then when I'm forced to give class, I'm forced to study. So it's very good for me. And so I'm grateful. And also for just being here, because otherwise, if there wasn't y'all in here, then I would just be speaking to the four walls and Prabhupada and Radha Govinda, which is okay, but it's better when there's more people. And so one of my goals of this class is I'm studying for Bhakti Vaibhav, and there's like maybe about 10 shlokas. There's a list of 75 shlokas that I eventually need to have memorized, but I just have like 10% of that or 15% of that memorized now. But I want to try to use all the shlokas that I know for Bhakti Vaibhav. And they actually fit very well. Originally, Prabhu Vishnu told me yesterday night that I was giving class, and I was thinking, oh, maybe if I wake up the deities, I'm waking up extra early, I might be too tired to like study, and it may be difficult. So I said, well, maybe we'll just do a Prabhupada class. But then when I finally looked at the verse, it was like such an inspiring verse and purport that I felt like I don't want to. Krishna gave me an easy one to like, it's like in putt golf, there's like a hole in one where it has everything lining up. You just kind of need to hit it and it'll automatically go. So I feel like Krishna is being very kind upon me, although he doesn't need to. And that happens a lot. If you serve Krishna, then Krishna is kind upon you. We're known as Bhakta Vatsala, who Bhakta Vatsala Das is also coming back soon. Can't wait to see that devotee. So in the purport, Prabhupada starts out saying how we should work only in order to please the Supreme Lord, otherwise you become entangled in the resultant actions. And the verse that reminded me of is Savai Pumso Pro Dharmo Yato Bhakti Dokshide Ahwaitakiya Pratiyata Yatma Suprasidati. That if we're performing devotional service completely unmotivated and uninterrupted, then we can completely get out of all kinds of entanglement, which ultimately make us suffer. Like Krishna says, chasing after sense enjoyment is the greatest suffering for the living entity. So we stop chasing after that and we start trying to actually serve the Lord, then we can actually attain supreme happiness, supracidity. And then Prabhupada starts talking about how the different varnas and ashrams should act. And he goes through, so the brahmacharis should hear, the vaishyas and kshatriyas, because they're materialistic, they should give, he says, 50% of their accumulated money. So it's just like if you're making a lot of money, it's okay to accumulate it, but then you should have a plan. Like Rupa Goswami is like a perfect example. He wasn't necessarily donating 50% of his salary right away when he was getting it, but at the moment when he was retiring, when he had accumulated a boatload of coins, literally like a boatload of gold, he deposited it with some grocer, and he distributed so much of it, and then he kept 50% of it he gave away to Vaishnavas and Brahmanas. 25% he kept as like an emergency fund. And what did he do with the last 25%? It's like blanking in my mind. Oh, and then he supported his family, of course, yeah. So if you're, and I don't even know if that really counts because his family's like Vaishnavas. So it's like basically like also Vaishnav Seva. So that was really nice. And anyone who's accumulating wealth, they should make some plan like that. That at least 50% goes towards performing great ceremonial sacrifices. Like it says the kings used to in the Krishna in Autumn. What is it? Light of the Bhagavat, or Krishna in Autumn chapter in Krishna book, saying like the clouds distribute rain, just like the kings distribute charity amongst the people. And there's so many points to go to, but I want to try to do this linearly. My mind's just jumping ahead. So the Kshatriyas are meant to fight, and Prabhupada kind of backs Dhruva Maharaj up here, although there's like always an extensive discussion on like what was really happening with Dhruva Maharaj killing all those yakshas, and even they had to have Manu come and like hold him back and stop him. But then Prabhupada's like saying, sometimes when you're ruling over a country, you have to fight and kill others. It's just how it is. Not that we want violence, but violence needs to be used to make peace. If there isn't peace, then you need to use violence to make peace. And that's just an ugly fact of the material world when we have people with varying desires and uncontrolled minds, and they want to all lord it over, and they can't all lord it over. Only one person can lord it over. That's Krishna, and Krishna's representative can try to, and Krishna can bless him to do that. And then you've got your Kshatriyas and Vaishyas who are giving all this charity, and then when then you have your Brahmanas, and plus when like the Kshatriyas finally give up their life, they become a Vanaprastha. They gave away all their wealth. Then they should perform tapasya. And in the Gita, it's said that the great souls, they never give up yagya, dana, and tapasya. Even on Krishna's birthday, Mother Yashoda's in the Krishna book, Mother Yashoda is telling Krishna, "Oh, it's your birthday now. You have to like." It's not that on his birthday he gets a bunch of things. It's on his birthday he gets the opportunity to give a bunch of things, do yagya, dana, and tapasya. And the nice thing about giving charity for anyone is actually giving charity is for the benefit of the person who's giving the money, because only like a few things can happen with your money. first thing that happens when you get a boatload of money, like if I just say, hey, I'm going to send you a shipment of gold and diamonds and it's worth $1 billion. You may think, gee whiz, that's really nice of you, Natabara. But actually, if you really think about it, then you're going to, you not only, I mean, you might have solved your $1 million problems, but you just created $1 billion problem, which is how to actually save that wealth. No matter where you try to put that or what you try to do with that, people are going to, if they know about it, your friends are not going to be your friends anymore. They're only going to be materially motivated to talk to you. You're always going to have thieves and dacoits and lawyers and all these different people that are going to try to get their part of the pie and try to steal it from you. You know, your family members are always going to be expecting something, and you're just going to be in complete anxiety. So it's actually, that money right there is like not good. It'll automatically create probably more problems. Most people, although being poor has its problems, and definitely if you can't get your necessities of life, that's an issue. But being, the ultra rich, and like in the demonic qualities chapter in the Gita, Krishna is saying how they're just thinking, oh, like my enemy's here, I'm going to kill him, and then my other enemy, I'll kill him. But then he talks about how they just get this entangled in this huge web of lies and false things, and trying to, it's like some big chess game that they're trying to defend all their pieces, and they're trying to do things, and they can't keep up with it. Eventually time is going to get them. Like Prahlad Anandamara said the other day, time is the ultimate terrorist. You can't hide from him. He's going to steal everything. So if Krishna is already going to steal everything anyways at the end of your life, and you'll get nothing for it, you'll just, you'll get suffering, then why not give your money for the good of others? Because you can't really enjoy it. Having the money just sitting in your bank account like a miser is just going to create stress and problems, whereas even just doing mundane good for others, it's very good. That's why there's so many charitable foundations, at least on the surface. That's why there is. I guess we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then what to speak of if you give it to someone spiritual, if you give it to someone connected with Krishna, if you somehow give the money to Krishna, then he recognizes that. I mean, if you just give it to some random person, that person's going to give it back to you probably double in their next life. If you give it to like a Brahmana, then it becomes even more. And if you give it to a Vaishnava, like you give it to Srila Prabhupada, you sponsor some Srila Prabhupada's books or something like that, then if you don't get the supreme unlimited result of going back to Godhead in your next life, at least you're guaranteed going to get so many millions of bhakti points and so much wonderful blessings from that. Well, otherwise, when you die, it's just going to go away. And so these are the different kind of yogyas that the different varnas have to practice. And Dhruva Maharaj was ideal. He emptied his coffers to just give this charity and do all these sacrifices after sacrifices. And Prabhupada mentions how worldly monarchy has failed ever since the kings started to satisfy their own senses. Like they stopped being able to think about pleasing the Lord and working for the welfare of others. Like it said in a purport that the best way to control one's mind is to always engage it in thinking of the welfare of others. So if you're not doing that, then the empty mind or the idle time is a devil's workshop. And basically, if you don't have your mind focused against the grain of sense enjoyment, then it's just the current of sense enjoyment in the world is just going to grab you. And like Rupa Goswami teaches us, Vacho vegam manasa kroda vegam jiva vegam udara pasta vegam itan vegam yufeshaheta dir sarvam apimam pritivim sashasyat. If you want to be sarvam apimam pritivim sashasyat, if you want everyone to be your students, in other words, if you want to really be able to lord it over the world and do good for others, then you need to have control over your mind and senses. If you don't have control over your mind and senses, then anything you do even if you're trying to do good for others, it'll ebb into doing good for yourself. And doing good for, really not good for yourself, but doing whatever the hell your mind and senses want you to do. You'll just succumb to their influence. And that's why devotees don't vote. A lot of the times, like, devotees are saying, oh, Donald Trump's a demon, oh, Joe Biden's a demon, Kamala Harris is a demon, like, so I'm going to vote for the other one. But it doesn't really matter. Does Donald Trump have his controlled senses? No. Does whoever other candidate, Como versus Naitani, or Zaitani, Zoharan, whatever this stupid guy, Mamdani, Zamdani, it doesn't matter. He's a dummy. He doesn't have his senses controlled. He's just spouting some lies. Half the stuff he says, 99% of the stuff he says, he can't do legally, and whatever he's going to try to do anyways is not going to be based on anything. He can just be bought and sold at any minute by any X number of politicians or secret societies or this and that, and there's going to be no progress made. They don't have their time to think about the welfare of others. They just have the time. This is funny. The politicians have very little time to think of the welfare of the citizens, whom they oppress with heavy taxes in the form of income. And the funny thing is, you look at one of this guy's ads, and it literally says, where am I going to get the money to do this? I'm going to find that super wealthy that like made a lot of money, and I'm going to tax the hell out of them. Like, Prabhupada's just like saying it there. And has a government ever been able to properly spend its money? You know, there's some things that the government needs to spend its money on, but is it going to spend it efficiently? No, it's definitely not. And, you know, Como is even worse. You know, he's I can't say even worse. They're both equally bad. Like, there's a funny South Park episode. I don't want to get into that. Yeah, I'll change the subject. But it's both equally bad, and they failed because they weren't raised in any kind of gurukul focused on Bhagavat culture. Like, we should all be becoming Bhagavats. That should be the goal of society, the goal of everyone. Atapumir dvijaseshta varnashram via bhagasha swanuti tasya dharmasya samsidam haritoshanam. Everything's meant for, and everything's perfected when Hari is pleased, when Krishna is pleased. When you're thinking of doing welfare for others for the pleasure of the Lord, that means your mind's completely in samadhi. That's why Prabhupada says when you're doing book distribution, when you're doing Sankirtan, that is samadhi. Because your mind has to be completely tuned in to the Lord's desires and doing benefit for others one by one. Instead of like now the modern rulers, like he's saying the kings now are completely corrupt. World monarchy has failed because kings try to satisfy their personal senses. And a great example of this is in France during the time when all the kings were being replaced by the democracies. Marie Antoinette was there, like up in the castle, and their advisor said, "Oh, the peasants, they're so hungry, they're starving, they don't have any bread." And she like famously said, you know, it's translated from French, "Let them eat cake." And actually, the real thing is "let them eat broche" or something like that. I don't. Manju probably knows what that bread is called. Anyways, there's some special bread made with eggs, and it's kind of like really succulent and like kind of like cake, broche or something, brioche. Let them eat brioche and whatever, you know, in French. I don't know French well enough to remember what it was. And it just showed her like complete disconnect, you know. If they ran out of bread, then let them eat cake. You know, they didn't run out of brioche, did they? And then the citizens got so mad that they chopped her head off. And they installed a democracy, which then also, because there's no Bhagavat culture, it doesn't matter who becomes the leader of a democracy, they're automatically going to be controlled by their senses and therefore controllable by other people that know how to pull their strings. And you look at today's democracy, like the average person in Congress in any country, but I'm in America, so I know that like they get a salary a certain amount. It's not a bad salary, it's pretty good. But you look at their actual wealth, their wealth is fantastic. Like they make like $200,000, $300,000 a year, maybe $400,000, you know, which is pretty good. If you save up for a few years, maybe you can save $1 million. But then you look, they have like $250 million, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars. And how did they get that? Because they're just controlled by their senses. And someone comes and bribes them, someone comes and does this and that, then they'll just take it. And if you have the Bhagavat system installed, then it doesn't really matter whether you have democracy or monarchy. You'll actually have controlled politicians that will be able to do good for the benefit of others. And Prabhupada even had some of his disciples try to go into politics a little bit for that. And so that's why devotees shouldn't vote, shouldn't really get so much involved in politics. It's like, do they follow the four regulative principles? Are they chanting Hare Krishna? Are they actually trying to increase Bhagavat Dharma in the world? If not, then they're just it's not really worth it. I mean, there's some good qualities in everything, but it's they don't really get our vote of satisfaction that we want. That we think they can actually give to the welfare of the people and actually rule the country nicely. It just will be impossible. And previously, yajna was very expensive. Like they talk about, you need swimming pools full of ghee, and they talk about feeding the brahmanas with all golden plates that they would, after one use, just chuck away like it was like a paper plate we use now. And it's like a level of wealth and a level of security that you can't even fathom, that we can't even imagine what it's like. I mean, but today the nice thing is the Sankirtan is free. Anyone can chant Hare Krishna. Even if your voice is messed up, you can chant Hare Krishna in your mind. Nothing can stop you from chanting Hare Krishna. And it's not only free, it's the best way to free yourself. So Deva Madhava, the marketing genius, when I first moved in to the Krishna house in Ypsilanti, the first version of it, not like the one on where it is now, he had a business card for it that said, it was like very provocative. It just said, free you. Normally, like you give out things and it says like, free breadsticks with your first order of pizza, or, buy one, get one free. And this one just said, free you. Like you get yourself freed by like following this. And I thought it was genius. Although I don't think people think that much these days that they would have really caught on to that. But Prabhupada also says then distributing prasadam is the other way. So distributing prasadam costs a little bit of money. Like we had to have Kandama Kanana Maharaj invest some money to make our nice Kandama Cafe, which is now a prasadam distribution center. We had to invest a little money buying some butter and sugar to like make cookies, which hopefully devotees will get our act together and be able to do. And if we actually make prasadam properly, then that will also purify people. I'm not really doing well in getting my shlokas out. If they actually hear this Vedic literature and get purified by prasadam, they can become free of all their problems. Yasyam vai shuyamanayam Krishne parama purushe bhaktir ahvetikim pumsa shokamoha bhayapaha. That if they just hear the Vedic literature, then they understand that Krishna is the parama purusha, that he's actually the controller of everything, and they will desire to do service unto him. I mean, when you realize that you're actually not God, that you're not the enjoyer, and you know who the actual enjoyer is, and you connect with that, then all your shoka, your lamentation because you couldn't get what you want, and your moha, your illusion because you want to try to get things that are impossible, and your bhaya, your fear that someone will come and take your things in the future, all that will all that will get extinguished, and all that will go away. And so this literature has the capacity to transform people's lives. Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo. In the sinful lives of the people in general, janataga, it can create a revolution. Yasmin prati shlokam abhavatya pi namyani astasya yashon kitani yat shivanti gayanti grinanti sadava. That in even one shloka about the glorious names, forms, and pastimes of the unlimited Lord, if it's heard and glorified, then the people's lives can be completely changed, and therefore we should try to get in front of them. That's why again, Sankirtan and book distribution, the holy name and prasadam and transcendental books side by side. If we're always engaging our mind in how to think of the welfares for others, that means that ultimately our mind should come to the conclusion of how to always do Sankirtan, always do Harinam Sankirtan, book distribution, and prasadam distribution. If our mind is always engaged in some way of how to do that, then that's the best way that we can actually control our minds, and we'll actually be the most happy doing that. Like someone was recently saying, "Oh, you're all are in a cult that is trying to like control your mind." And it's like, well, what? You're saying that you don't want to control your mind? Like you just want your mind to have full control? Like put your mind completely in the driver's seat? I mean, that I would just say that's just like another crazy cult that is even more dangerous, even more worse. Like everyone that's in that cult, there's no way that they could actually do good for others. And it's very dangerous. So to like say that, oh, like somehow you being in the cult is like a bad thing and therefore you should free your mind and not try to do all these thought-stopping processes like chanting mantras and saying prayers and oh my God, But Sankirtan and Yajna is simple. You just go out and you just chant. All the family members can sit down together and simply clap their hands if they don't have a mridanga, or they can get a mridanga and clap the mridanga. And that's quite sufficient for this age of Kali, Prabhupada's saying. I really love this. This is the reason why I wanted to say this, this whole class, because, anyways, I'm not doing very much, but I feel like I've dedicated my life to try to do Harinam Sankirtan for whatever that's worth. And Prabhupada's inspiring me. The Krishna conscious movement is based on this principle. Chant the Hare Krishna mantra at every moment, as much as possible, both inside and outside of the temple, and, as far as possible, distribute prasad. This process can be accelerated with the cooperation of state administrators and those who are producing the country's wealth. Like Prabhupada went to Chicago and he had a whole meeting with the Chicago police saying, like, actually, you're trying to fight crime, but if you help us and give us a building and give us facilities, we can also have an influence on the populace that will help you in your crime fighting. And the officer was nice, but he didn't really pursue Prabhupada's solution, which was dumb on his part, but what can we do? Even without the direct help of the state administrators, well, we do. They made the constitution here. We have our different rights to free speech, so we can do. We've been doing kirtan every single day in the subways and the parks, and people have tried to stop us for various different reasons, but just being able to do it, they have to find a much. We have to be blocking traffic or causing some other problem, doing something else illegally before they can actually stop us. So they haven't been able to stop us yet, which is good. Who knows how much longer we'll have the chance to do that, depending on how Kali Yuga advances. But while we have the opportunity, we should take it. And the Lord awards everyone different kinds of karma as they desire. If you want to desire sense gratification, that's why the Lord made this whole material existence, is to facilitate the desires of those who wanted to enjoy separately from Him. So He lets them and He empowers them to do that. But then He also leaves upon them to suffer the reactions of all their activities. If they want to try to lord it over, then they also have to get the reactions of interacting with all the billions and trillions and unlimited other ones that want to also try to lord it over. So that's a lot of reactions. Be good to the people on your way up, because you're going to meet the very same people on your way down. So that's what happens. The whole world is just like a merry-go-round. Like you're a human, and then you start to get some good intelligence or something like that, and you do things right, then slowly you become a higher planetary things, then you become a demigod, and you're like the higher demigods, then you're so puffed up, you start making offenses, people don't like you, they kick you out of power, and then you go, and then your neck garland falls off, and you fall down into material, and then you perform this thing, and suddenly you find yourself in hell. You're getting beaten by the Yamadutas and you can't do anything for billions of years, and then you become humble and you become like a nice guy again, and you start to get good qualities, and then finally you get qualified to be born on earth again, and then you're like back to where you started. And then you just keep raising, and then you become a king, and then and it's just like a merry-go-round. You just keep cycling it, up and up and down and up and down. But then that one day, that one person comes up to you and has Krishna in their heart and wants to give you Krishna and awaken Krishna in your heart, then that day everything changes. Then the whole Ferris wheel completely stops, like a fan getting unplugged, and like they say, like the demigods are looking in the Kali Yuga, or the golden Yuga, of Lord Chaitanya, and they're just seeing all these unlimited people getting saved and going back to Godhead, and they become jealous and they want to also try to take birth. And so the Lord also, if we try to serve Him, then He also will give us complete facility. Like, who can say, we can complain about this thing and that thing about this temple, but who can say that the Lord isn't giving us full facility to actually try to serve Him and perform Sankirtan? I mean, He's giving us facility, we just have to want to do it. And I was thinking, I made this app, and Hansarupa is upstairs, and I think Aditya is taking the front desk. And I don't know how many others have a valid excuse. I don't know who's cooking breakfast or who's doing what. Michael's cooking breakfast, so I don't want to mention any names of who's not here, but there's many names of those who are not here that perhaps could be here. And the health of the temple really depends on the health of the hearing and the chanting of its devotees. So somehow everyone that's performing good japa, although that's kind of hard to measure, but you can measure who's coming to the class, who's coming to Harinam, how many books is the temple distributing, how many new people are coming to the programs. I want to eventually make something that's like monitoring all this, like we keep track of all these numbers, so you can have to see the spiritual health of the temple. And right now, how many people are in the temple room? I mean, we have more worshipable deities on the altar than there are people in the temple room, so it's kind of sad. I mean, who knows if different demigods and unmillion countless like invisible entities are there? But like since we're humans, we're mainly focused on the humans that may come here. We can't demigod. We're not really going to preach to the demigods, anyways. They just come to laugh at us, and like Prabhupada said, like Narada Muni came and he laughed and said, "Oh, look at all the Vaishnava, or all the Mlechas are becoming Vaishnavas. They're trying to perform devotional service. That's so funny." But there should, we should be through our preaching, we should be inviting people to the class. They should be coming to hear the Bhagavat and understand like the value of that, and slowly mature in their devotional service, start coming for the morning program. So it should, even if the devotees aren't able to come, it should be still a full packed house every day. Like this is we're wondering how do we make like different outreach and different stuff like that. But like ultimately, like that's the goal, is that then they would be coming to this once they hear enough. If someone's been coming to programs for a year or two, then why not start coming to the morning program, do Guru Puja, come for Bhagavatam class, have breakfast, then go to work. That's a wonderful morning for anyone if they can work. Could get to work at 9:30 or something like that. And what to speak of our other programs. Okay, I'm gonna take a step back because I missed some things. I wanted to spit my shlokas out. We were talking about in the beginning about the different varnas and ashrams and the different yagyas that they have to do. So in the 4th chapter, Krishna's talking about how there's all different kinds of sacrifices that all different kinds of people do, with ultimately the goal is that they're getting transcendent knowledge that's beyond the material world. And he goes and talks about what they do. And there's this nice quote. There's this Atma Tattva Prabhu, who's in Australia now, I think. Right, Manju? Atma Tattva, Atma Tattva? You never heard? He's like Indian. He is a Prabhupada disciple. Oh, you don't know where? Okay, yeah. Well, wherever he is, he had a biography that never really got released. I found it somewhere on the internet and I read it, and there was a very poignant thing in there that stuck with me. And it was some tantric like telling him, like, because they were doing some like really weird stuff, and he's telling him to do, and he was asking, why do we have to do all this grotesque stuff? because they were in the the burial grounds and the burning ghats and like doing all this dirty stuff. And he told them to do what people in general can't do. You have to do what people in general can't do. In other words, like in modern day thing, it's like you have to put in if you want to rise up, like it's the people that are the champions, the people that are doing the most are the people that have done the most to get there. If someone wants to be the boxing champion, they're going to have to train harder than the current boxing champions. If someone wants to be, the Raj Bhog champion, they're going to have to cut up more vegetables than the current Raj Bhog champion. It's just as simple as that. If you want to do something more than other people, then you have to do something more than other people to be able to get that potency. Like Prabhupada is like the spreading Krishna conscious Acharya. So he did more than anyone else ever to be able to do that. His whole life, practically speaking, was just one big yagya, one big bow and arrow, just focused on one target of just being able to do that. And so he had the most faith, the most potency, and you can just see every other Gita that was translated, it didn't really make that many devotees. But then Prabhupada comes, and he's not only is he making devotees like in India or something like that, but he's like completely converting people from these other cultures. Every different culture is like accepting the ancient Vedic culture. And he's like single-handedly reviving that. So anyways, there's all these varnas and ashrams that are doing these different kinds of yagyas, and they see the world differently. Vedanti tattva vedas tattvagyam tava yaj jnanam advayam brahmeti paramameti bhagavaniti shabdyate. That some of them see Brahman and they try to worship Brahman. Some of them see God, have realized Paramatma, and they're trying to do meditation and breath work. And some realize Bhagavan. So like I was saying, like the brahmacharis, they hear Vedic literature. So that's about hearing about Bhagavan. And hearing about Bhagavan is so wonderful that even Shukadeva Goswami was completely liberated. He was so liberated, he had control whether he was going to be born or not out of his mother's womb. And because he didn't want to get influenced by materialism, he didn't want to even leave his mother's womb. He just wanted to stay there and meditate until he was 16. And then he heard the wonderful shlokas coming from the Bhagavatam. Is that when he got born? Maybe I'm mixing this up. Shukadeva Goswami was in the womb, then he heard the Bhagavatam and he decided to be born. Or as soon as he was born, he's like, I'm getting out of here, and he ran away. And then when he heard the Bhagavatam, then he came back, and that was something like, okay, yeah, I'm sorry if I'm... men in this age are quarrelsome, lazy, hypocritical, and above all else, always disturbed. So I'm sorry if I'm forgetting things improperly. Hopefully the devotees will be merciful. So atmaranas cha munayo nirgranta apyukrame kurvanti havitikim bhaktim itam bhuto guno hari. That the qualities of Hari are so wonderful, and he's performing such wonderful activities, urukrame, that when you hear about it, even if you're a completely nirgranta muni, you're a sage that has no bondage. We were talking earlier about the bondage of the different people with different karmas. How if you want to lord it over the world, then you're going to have to also take all the reactions of all the other people that want to lord it over, and they're going to be pissed at you and want to get back at you, want to get revenge for all whatever you did. So whoever on the way up, you got to be in you'll meet on the way down. So if there's a sage that's completely beyond all that, and he's trying to not perform any activities, if he hears the wonderful qualities, then he will want to do Ahoitiki Bhakti towards him. So that's also why it's important to see many people coming to hear. Like even where we are here it's just a nice coincidence. I don't think it's a coincidence, but that the word here and the word here are the same, because wherever you are is based on what you've heard. And so the fact that there's not many people in the class means that not enough people are hearing. And there's definitely people that have good excuse. They're hearing online. That's good, but we need to broadcast the glory so much that enough people come in here that it's packed house. It should be like an event. Like, people don't want to miss Bhagavatam class because it's going to be so much nectar, and that they're just so eager to come here that they, mold their life around it. And I admit, maybe we don't have speakers that can speak in such wonderful ways, but we can have our ideals. And I've gone to 9 o'clock, and I think everything was perfectly explained. There's no possibility of having any questions or discussions. But we'll hear from Mother Manju because she's the most senior. She's saying no. See, she's agreeing with me that there's no everything. Okay, well then I guess who's more senior? It's nice to follow the Vaishnav etiquette. The Vaishnav etiquette is the something of a devotee. Mahaprabhu says it's like the garland of the devotee, the jewel of the devotee, something like that. Anyways.
I wasn't ready to have the mic. Something I am thinking about.
I'll turn it down right now.
When it comes to giving charity, sometimes even as devotees, we need to, we observe the culture of the environment of the temple, and that informs our desire to give.
Yeah.
And so the principle of giving charity is always there, and the benefit is there. But in the modern day nowadays, I would say that, like, for example, anyways,
like, no one wants to donate to the big black hole.
Yeah, like, there are communities where there are many devotees, and it's like there's not a strong culture of giving to the temple, and there are reasons for that. But at the same time, also the culture of giving is also not strong either. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. This phenomenon, whereas there's, on the one hand, there's the culture of giving that is beneficial in any context for reasons that you spoke on, and also at the same time, like you had mentioned, hypocrisy. That people want to see that I'm giving to something that I know what it's going to be used for, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
so
I guess
kind of like a standoff.
It's a couple things that come to my mind. One thing is that, like, there may be communities, and the devotees may not be miserly, but they also may not be giving so much to the temple. But Prabhupada says also, you just give to any Vaishnavas. Like, the temples and institutions are only as spiritual as the people inside the institutions. Like, Prabhupada is spiritual, and Prabhupada's books are spiritual. And Prabhupada's temples are spiritual in so much as those who are administrating Prabhupada's temples are following the instructions in those books. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes in his Putana essay that actually, when you make an institution, just like our bodies are not spiritual, they can be spiritualized, but they're not spiritual. An institution is also not inherently spiritual. And so there's a lot of, in charity, there's a lot of trust involved. Like someone famously said, there's no dearth of money, like especially in New York. Like you go, we do kirtan in Columbus Circle, and you can see billionaires row where they have like buildings that are like 1,000 stories high. I mean, I don't know if it's 1,000, but they're like, you look up and it's like ridiculously high. And to get one apartment there is like so much money. So they call it billionaires row, because you just have to be a billionaire to be able to hope to afford to be able to live in that kind of opulence. And if you're the kind of person that can, like I said, if I just gave you $1 billion worth of gold and diamonds, they did a study that most people that were poor that won the lottery became poor very quickly after that. To become wealthy, you have to be a Kshatriya or a Vaishya. A Shudra doesn't necessarily have the skills to. A Shudra can also be kind of wealthy, but like the thought process and things is different. So if someone's going to actually have a lot of money, the chances are, unless they just inherited it, that they have a different kind of thought process than the people that aren't wealthy. And to get them to trust that their money is going to be used nicely, they really have to they have to see things, they have to know, okay, this money was given and this thing was executed. So that kind of trust has to be there, that no, these people aren't just here like just getting fat off, like Prabhupada would always criticize. He would criticize his God brothers, he would criticize the Casco Swamis, he would criticize everybody. Ain't nobody got away from his criticism on that point, that like you can't just have a temple, have some innocent people come there and they give you some money and you fill your belly and you call that successful. That's like failing. Like if a temple's doing really good, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wrote a letter like, what you should do is you should have a really big Janmashtami ceremony that you have to take out a gigantic loan that you have no hopes of paying off anytime soon. And then within 6 months, you need to pay off that loan so that when Gaur Pranim comes around, you can take out another gigantic loan and have a huge Gaur Pranim festival. And that way, you won't have any money, and you'll be forced to actually become spiritual, so that when you go and talk to the householder, they'll actually be inspired to give you money. Because they'll test you. They don't want to just give their money for nothing. They'll test you to see how actually spiritual you are. And the more spiritual you are, the more you'll be able to convince them that, hey, your money is not going to give you happiness. What's going to be happiness is your mind is going to be focused on Krishna. That's Bhoktarang Jagya Tapasam, Suridam Sarva, Mencham Santam Richati. The actual peace that you want, the actual happiness that you want can come when you focus on Krishna. And wherever your energy goes, your mind will go. So wherever your money goes, your mind will go. So if your money is going to Krishna, give us your money, then you'll always be thinking, you'll be worried about, oh, I gave my money to those rascal devotees and I hope they spend it nicely. Then you'll always come to the temple to make sure that we're spending it nicely and we're doing things good. You'll say, hey, why didn't you get that new ornament? Why didn't you rebuild this thing? Why didn't you do that? I gave you enough money to do that. And in that way, they'll be purified. But if we're not actually following the process, if there's people in the temple are just trying to be miserly or not fully engaged in the process, okay, well, I'm giving so much money to them, but they only did like 500 books last month. Like, why waste giving money on them if they're actually not doing Sankirtan Yajna? I thought we're supposed to give our money to do Sankirtan Yajna. Then they won't trust the process. They won't have that feeling to actually give money. And so the duty of anyone in the temple is just simply be as spiritual as you can, and then automatically everyone you connect to will be inspired. If you're actually following what Prabhupada wrote, you'll be inspired. And to whatever degree of Maya and that's not allowing you to follow, you won't be inspired and you won't be inspiring. So there's definitely, it's like, if someone, like this comedian said this really funny thing. She's like, I hate seeing the people, like the Christians on the train or whatever, that like really get after you and like yelling at you. But I hate even more the lukewarm ones that like don't say anything. Because if you actually believe what they say, then you would be like that. Like we say this thing, like in a burning building, there's no language barriers. It doesn't matter if I don't speak the same language, just let's get out of here. even if someone speaks Russian or doesn't speak at all, like wake them up and pull them out and like show them that there's a fire. Like you'll figure it out some way. So if we actually believe what's in other words, the more faith we get, in other words, how much we're actually hearing, in other words, how many people are at the Bhagavatam class, then the more powerful that we'll be able to have that faith, that we'll be able to communicate that problem, that we'll be able to inspire them to actually, help. And so, yeah, basically, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Any more discussion? We're going really late after time now. I'm normally a stickler to this, but it's a run-on sentence.
You're mentioning that Kali Yuga progresses, and I find, and we may not be able to do this. I feel like sometimes we say, "Oh, Lord Chaitanya's golden age is coming," but then we also say Kali Yuga is progressing. Which one is it?
Well, it's probably, I don't know the exact things, but we have a 10,000-year golden age. Prabhupada said that, and I'm fairly certain it's in some Shastra. I researched it one time, but it's not on my tip of my mind right now. So that's a fact, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to like just turns into Satya Yuga for 10,000 years and everything's amazing, and the Vaishnava king comes and kills Donald Trump and kills Joe Biden and kills all the world leaders and just takes over the whole world or something like that. It doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen. It just means that conditioned souls are going to get the mercy. Now, getting the mercy doesn't have to do much with the material atmosphere. The material atmosphere doesn't need to change that much, but just our ability, I'm talking about our ability to not be impeded by the government. Prabhupada's saying the government should help, but I'm saying our ability not to be impeded. If you go to Russia, you're going to be impeded. If you go to Europe, you're going to be impeded. If you go to England, you're going to be impeded. If you go to all these different places, you're going to be impeded. America is one of the best places to not be impeded by the government because of the little iota of spirituality that the founding fathers had to think of making the Bill of Rights, basically, the First Amendment. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, things like that. So we have freedom to go out there to distribute Prabhupada's books and to chant Hare Krishna. And no one can tell us to stop for an arbitrary reason. The cops will protect us from being stopped for arbitrary reasons. The only reason we can be stopped now is if we do something wrong. If we pepper spray someone in the face, or we get into a big fight, or we block traffic in the subway. So as long as we keep our stuff together, we won't cause any problems. But if Kali Yuga progresses and it becomes more totalitarian, the controllers want to try to control more. One way they want to control is they want to control the flow of ideas. They don't want someone preaching an idea to someone that's outside of their scope. They want to make the actual acceptable ideas lower, like you read in 1984 or Fahrenheit 451, books about you control the people's language, you control the people's ability to think. So if we're giving them language about transcendental, meditation, the holy name is completely beyond all things. You can, always chant the mantra every second and can control people, people can control their minds by trying to serve the Lord and think of the benefit of others. And rather, instead of what the controllers want you is eat, enjoy, spend your money, all these advertising. It's all just one big control monster, and that's gonna, the demons are gonna want to try to control you. You're memorizing the 16th chapter, Tell us a shloka about that. You probably could tell us so many different shlokas about how the demons just want to control more. They're not going to want to control less. So it's going to happen simultaneously. So just like in Russia, even though the demons were trying to control, that one devotee getting empowered by Prabhupada could do so much. So if we are not, Kali Yuga can constrict, but the golden age can still be there. Maybe we can't go out and do Harinam, or maybe we protest and do it anyways, and that causes a wave. Or maybe we all get sent to jail, then we make the whole jail a temple. Something like that. Somehow or other, if there's a will, there's a way. Even if, you imagine the most ridiculous situation, imagine Prahlad's situation. The entire universe is against him. He's literally, the Narad Muni's the whole idea of saving, preaching and saving the world and the demigods winning. He's just all right, Hail Mary, I'm just going to like go and chant Hare Krishna in the form of a bird while Hiranyakashipu is like, copulating and making the sun. That was their plan. And by the transcendental potency, it worked. So even in the most dire of circumstances, we're nowhere near that kind of circumstance where the whole universe is against us. In fact, everyone's actually looking for this. They're looking for happiness. They want to unplug from the disgusting things that are happening. But we need to have breakfast so that we can have energy, so that we can do more preaching and more book distribution and planning for all our programs. So I would just like to say, anyone who's listening, if you know someone that wasn't listening, tell them to try to come to class, because it'll make our temple powerful. And if you have any excuse to not come to class, try to like get rid of your excuse and just come to class. The more we come to class, the more we'll be inspired, guaranteed. I'll give you at my $1,000 guarantee. I'll give you $1,000. If you come to class every day for a month and you're not more inspired, come in the temple room. Don't listen anywhere else. I'll never give you $1,000 because I know you'll be inspired. Shkantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Prabhupada, take it away. Ki jai. Ki line ki jai. Jai jai.